All right, welcome in. Last call here, WagerTalk.com. I'm Joe Raineri. We've got a loaded slate here today. Welcome back. College football week 0 in full effect. We've got the final week 3 of the NFL preseason games to take a look at. And, of course, plenty of Major League Baseball as well as a couple of races coming up here over the next 2 weeks that involve a whole lot of money and a whole lot of pretty good opportunities to cash a few tickets at the track. And nobody better to help us do just that than Sean Alvarez joining us here from WagerTalk.com. And Sean, you got to love it. I can't believe it. The Travers. It feels like all we've been talking about is Saratoga, by the way, because Belmont decided to embark on a 95-year construction project, which will never get done. So everyone will be at Saratoga for the near future. But the Travers is always one of the biggest events, and it's no different this year because it's really the girl versus the boys in this race here. So talk to us. What are we looking at here at the Travers today at Saratoga?
Yeah, it's definitely an exciting time, especially, we always like and point to racing at Saratoga, but you get the $1.3 million Grade 1 Travers Stakes. And like you mentioned, not only are we going to see some horses that sound a little familiar if you were paying attention during the Triple Crown Trail in the Kentucky Derby prep races and whatnot, but like you mentioned, we get the Philly versus the boys. And while there's not a lot of world beaters, that definitely makes for a good betting race. And looking forward to trying to cash some tickets later today.
Well, we thought we were going to get Torpedo Anna in the Preakness, right? But Kenny McPeak was like, yeah, no, not so fast. Mystic Dan's in that race. They didn't want anything to do with it. Mystic Dan not in this race here, but a lot of really good 3-year-olds at Saratoga in this race here. So what are the chances that Torpedo Anna gets it done and beats the boys?
She definitely got no favors thrown her way with the drawing the rail from on the inside, but she definitely has enough enough quickness from the gate to at least settle into a nice position, not necessarily get shuffled back, but we're definitely going to see how good she is and whether or not she can beat up on these the males like she's done with the Phillies, because she's 4 for 4 in her last 4 races. And she's doing so with an average winning length of 4.5 lengths. So if she can put forth some of those efforts and really dig in, I think she's got a big shot against the males here later today.
All right, so break it down for us here, because I'm seeing Dornock, all the horses that we've talked about over this entire stretch are in this race. I'm talking about the who's who of 3-year-olds here. So conditions appear to be pretty set, no problem there, Sean. So break it down. Who are the horses that we should be focusing our attention on?
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned, about the number 1 Torpedo Anna at 3-1. I definitely think that she's a big player in this race. Not only is she my top pick, but I can definitely see her maybe even kind of putting this field away at the top of the stretch. But if she does it, she's going to have to work really hard on doing it, because if you look through the top 1 through the rest of the field, the eight horses, a good majority of these horses want to be on or near the lead. So I don't necessarily think they're going to go too fast too early. I hope that doesn't necessarily ruin the race, but I think there's going to be a battle for that pace position. And when those horses eyeball each other in the front, they're pack animals, and some of these horses don't necessarily want horses to go in front of them. So that's going to lead to a little bit of uncomfortable up front, and maybe point to those closers. And one of those closers I like that we've talked about in the Kentucky Derby, we talked about in the Preakness, and we even talked about last a month ago or so in the Jim Dandy, is the 2 Sierra Leone. This is a horse that's going to take back early, doesn't want to be anywhere near that lead. It always comes flying. Now, this is a horse that Chad Brown had to, quote unquote, take Tyler Gaffleone off as he was lugging in during the stretch. They've changed the bit in the horse's mouth to give him, quote unquote, a little bit more power steering. So, whether or not he can straighten up in the stretch is kind of the question, but I think he's going to have enough pace to run into. You get Flavian Pratt And like I said, you're not going to get cheated in the stretch because he's going to come flying. It's just a matter of, what kind of pace he has to run into and if he's good enough. And then, another horse that I think that you kind of want to play more on the defensive side, at least in my opinion, that's going to be up and near the lead is the 7 Dornoch at 5-2. Luis Saez rides. He's a very aggressive jockey, so he should have no problem getting on or at least in touch with the pace. And I really like what he did in the Grade 1 Haskell last month out at Monmouth. They weren't necessarily going fast early. He's going to have to go a little bit faster today. But he was able to not only give up the lead, but he battled back and won by a length and a quarter. So, he's one of those horses that, like I mentioned, when other horses eyeball him, he digs in a little bit, doesn't want to necessarily give up the lead. So in a race like this where I do think that there's going to be a lot of at least presence up front, you want that horse that's got a lot of heart and understands his job, reaches for the wire, and doesn't really want to get past. So those are kind of the horses that I'm keying on. The 1 Torpedo Anna, the 2 Sierra Leone, and the 7 Dornoch 5-2.
Yep. What kind of conversation would we be having about Dornoch if he didn't have the 1 post at the Derby? Because this horse is, we'd be having a totally different conversation. I mean, obviously to Haskell, the horses weren't of the same caliber he's going to face today, but Luis Saez out on the 7 post and fierceness next to him. So there's plenty of speed in this race. I guess the question is it going to be so fast that nobody's going to catch him? What do you think is going to happen? Is this speed win? Is this a wire-to-wire spot?
Yeah, I mean, and we've seen that before. One of them was with Dornoch at the Belmont. Wasn't necessarily going too fast. Wasn't necessarily, getting eyeballed up front. So that's definitely a worry that I have where, the jockeys don't necessarily want to get in a speed duel. And the likes of, like you mentioned, the 7 Dornoch, if he gets an easy lead and they don't want to go, this race might be over after the first call.
And that's the problem here with Luis Saez, bastard. All right, so let's go, Sean. We've got, obviously, the Travers coming up at Saratoga next week. Another huge race coming up at Del Mar, another absolutely gorgeous track. Look ahead to that. And, of course, folks can always visit your page over at WagerTalk.com if you're looking for all of the daily racing picks from Sean Alvarez. But take me to the Pacific and what we're looking at next week in this race.
Yeah, so a week from today is Del Mar's kind of edition, if you will, of, Saratoga's got the Travers, Del Mar's got the Pacific Classic. So not only is it usually a great race, Grade 1 $1 million purse, but like we're seeing at Saratoga, you're going to get a lot of graded races and good cards on the undercard. So definitely head over to my page and let's try and cash some winners like we're going to attempt to today. But with the Pacific Classic, it looks like we're going to get the top 3 horses in the San Diego Handicap, kind of a second edition of that. But also we've got a couple new shooters with the likes of Katona, maybe Mixto is training really well for Doug O'Neill. And, of course, Bob Baffert's keeping all of his plans close to his chest. So that's going to include horses like Reincarnate, Muth, and maybe we get a mare in the Pacific Classic like we're seeing the filly of Torpedo Anna. I'd really like to see a Dare Manor run in the Pacific Classic and see what she can do against the Southern California version of the male contingency out there. I definitely hopefully she gets in and makes for a really good betting race.
I love it. All right, Sean Alvarez, great day of racing coming up here for us across the board. Visit his page over at WagerTalk.com and grab those picks for the card today at Saratoga. We appreciate it. Sean, always a pleasure here. How many of you are ready for college football week 0? That is coming up top of the hour, noon, in fact, over in Dublin, Florida State taking on Georgia Tech. We'll have a little college football talk for you coming up. Adam Trigger will be in the house, of course, to talk some Major League Baseball as well as college football. Shout out to the chat room, by the way, as the usual lunatics are showing up in full force here today. It's always a pleasure. Missed you guys. Have not seen you in a while. But first, Bryan Leonard, the man, Mr. Underdog, in the house here. Major League Baseball here today. Big slate. Couple of more dogs. Last night we're cashing tickets for bettors there, Brian. But today you're going to be looking at a game that I looked at it. I didn't know who was pitching, but I saw Detroit at that kind of price. And I'm like, it's got to be Scooble Day. The only way that Detroit would be over a $2 favorite is if Scooble is pitching. It's against the White Sox. So what are we doing in this one coming up? Oh, the cat button. Oh, it's the cat button. Oh, no. Oh, he's still. I think the cat's pissed, and he's like, "Absolutely not. Am I letting you talk to anybody?" So we will. We'll get the cat all squared away. Maybe we'll bribe it. Oh, there it is. All right, good. Now we got you. You're good to go.
Refresh. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, when the cat enters, I have to. Geez. But anyway, the Detroit-Chicago game. A couple lefties taking them out in this one, and neither team has really had much success against southpaws this year. The Tigers come in with an 88 WRC plus, while the Sox counter with an 83 WRC plus. That's 12 and 17% worse than the league average. So we could see ourselves having a low-scoring game here. You know, Detroit sending Cy Young favorite Tarek Skubal to the hill, as you mentioned, and he's got a 2.49 ERA, 0.93 WHIP. His advanced stat numbers are simply amazing. He's in the 70th percentile or better in every category except extension. Now, extension is how close you are to home plate when you let go of the ball. So the shorter pitchers, for the most part, won't have it. Taller pitchers will, and he can't do much about that. But that includes 4 categories he's in, where he's in the 90th percentile or better: expected ERA, fastball velocity, whiff percentage, and strikeout rate. You know, on the road, he's got a 2.74 ERA, 0.97 WHIP. Detroit's known to have a pitcher's park, but he's been very good on the road as well. In 9 of his last 10 outings, he's had quality starts. So this is very similar to what we talked about on the show yesterday with the Atlanta pitcher, and he's been very consistent all season long. The White Sox counter with young Kai Bush, who's making his 4th start since the call-up. And one of the things I look for, and I've done it for years and had a lot of success, is looking for lefties who are new to the league, as teams don't see southpaws very often and they don't know much about them. And there's usually some betting value in that regard at the highest level when a lefty is in there for his first few starts until he proves that he is deserving to be in the league. And I think he is. He's pitched very well. In fact, his 2 starts on the road, he's got a 3.60 ERA, 1.40 WHIP, a little high there. But in his last 2 starts, he faced the Yankees and the Astros, 2 of the best and hottest offenses in baseball. He allowed a total of 3 earned runs in 10.2 innings of work. He should find some success here, stepping down in class against the Tigers' bats. I'm playing this game under, and I'm also taking a little bit of a shot on the White Sox here. This line should not be this high. Detroit's a good team, but they're not a playoff caliber team. And you've got a starting pitcher that everybody wants to jump on this starting pitcher and ignore Chicago. And the line's coming down in a couple places. A couple of smart books are showing action on the White Sox in this game. So it would not surprise me if you were to take a long shot on the White Sox to get this victory.
Yeah, well, Tigers not great against lefties, and neither is Riley Green. So if Riley Green can't hit a lefty, then the chances of Detroit doing a lot of damage, Brian, probably not all that great. So I am with you there 100%. Did open up at 8. It is down to 7.5, but I'm kind of with you here. Why not take a shot? And plus, we know Adam Trigger is coming up, so nobody loves a quality White Sox play like Adam Trigger. So we'll get to his thoughts on this one. The next game up for you, though, Brian, interesting. Dan I can still hear the tears in my ear from the ass whooping that the Phillies took last night from Michael Wacha and the Royals, but they do get another shot at them today. Brady Singer on the mound for the Royals. Ranger Suarez back on the hill for the Phillies. Did they peak too soon, Bryan Leonard? I mean, it's one of the fears that I have had. I mean, they had such an amazing schedule and start to the season. There had to be regression, but are we worried about them still again today on the road to Kauffman?
You know, it's interesting. There's an article out there, and I'll talk about this in a minute, that kind of enlightens us on the Philadelphia offense. So we'll get to that in a second. Lefty Ranger Suarez, as you mentioned, returns from the IL tonight to take on the Royals, red hot Royals team, actually. And he's been a major surprise this season with an outstanding 2.87 ERA, 1.06 whip. He's an extreme ground ball pitcher, ranking in the 91st percentile, but his control has really improved this year. His walk rate is in the 86th percentile and a barrel rate in the 89th percentile. And that's why he's been so good. Being able to keep batters off balance and off the bases has been a skill he really didn't have in his previous 6 seasons, but he has it this year. We'll see if it continues after missing the last 5 weeks or so here. But he's got a 2.87 ERA on the road to go with a 1.01 whip, which is pretty good. The way he's pitched in a good hitting ballpark in Philadelphia has been pretty impressive, but he's carried that on to the road as well. I talked about not pitching in 5 weeks. That could be a concern here as he may be on a pitch limit. But if you take a look at the bullpen for Philadelphia, they've only had one of their last 5 guys who usually use in the game pitch in the last 2 days. So everybody's fresh in the bullpen. So even if he is on a pitch count here, I think they'll have a very good return from that bullpen. Brady Singer takes the hill for the Royals. He's got a 3.18 ERA, 1.21 whip on the season. And while his advanced numbers show he's pitching above his head, he still has the ability to silence this struggling Phillies offense. As I mentioned earlier, there was a recent article posted about how the opposition has attacked this potent team. Over the last month, or going back to the All-Star break, opponents have featured off-speed and breaking pitches against this lineup while keeping the fastballs to a minimum. And if you go back and see Philadelphia against fastballs, they've been terrific. And I always talk about teams that throw pitchers that don't throw a lot of fastballs. Everybody in Major League Baseball can hit a fastball. Hell, most kids in Little League can hit a fastball. It's the off-speed pitch, the curveballs, that people have trouble with. And that's the way the Phillies are. They're a team that really hits the fastball and struggles against the off-speed pitches. And Singer only throws a four-seamer at 11.7% of the time. So not very often will you see the fastball from Singer while throwing a slider and a sinker, a combined 83.6% of his pitches. We expect this Royal staff to limit his scoring, this scoring unit for Philadelphia. So we've got 2 teams right here that I think are going to be in a low-scoring contest. I have my concerns about Singer, but because he doesn't throw a lot of fastballs, this is a good matchup for him. So I'm going to play this game under the total.
Under the total in this one as well, 9.5. And let the record show here, as Dan is absolutely allowing people to know that yesterday on First Pitch that none of you guys liked Philadelphia in any way, shape, or form here. And we're going to wonder how much longer that is going to continue here. Interesting team, this Philadelphia. And there's one thing we know about Major League Baseball pitchers. If they figure they got an edge on you, they're going to force you to have to do something different, Bryan Leonard. And if you can't hit an off-speed pitch and a changeup, wow, this is going to be an interesting finish to the season for the Philadelphia Phillies here. We'll see how that goes. Also, the Royals again, Tyler all over them here. Can't blame anybody looking to go with Kaufman. Maybe even Royals first 5 I'm seeing from Robert S. as well. So a lot of Royals love in the chat room. That might just be the scariest damn thing I've seen all day long. So we might just have to go with the Phillies at that particular point. All right, Bryan Leonard, loaded slate here today. College football is off and running. NFL, of course, will be here before we know it. What is up and available over at your page at WagerTalk?
Yeah, as for football, I've got nothing. I don't do the preseason, and I've got nothing on these few games going today, but I do have a nice size play going on a game next week involving 2 of the teams going to be fighting for the final 16. So that should be a lot of fun. I've also got some plays up on the site right now. Number 2, I don't know, number 1 or 2, the last 3-7 days in Major League Baseball net profit on the season. Number 2 in that regard last year, number 3. So obviously know what we're talking about here in Major League Baseball. And we got some nice specials going on for our 10th year anniversary And I was one of the originals, and I appreciate everybody that's come since then. But we've got a terrific bunch of handicappers on the site right now, and you can save some money. So if you're looking for baseball, football, Canadian ice hockey, or whatever else is out there, you can take a look at, we got guys that are handicapping darts, so there's everything out there. And the horse racing, as we've just seen from Sean. And that's actually the first time I've ever seen Sean's hair. He's always wearing a baseball cap. When I see him, almost didn't recognize him, but he's a healthy looking guy. He's always in good shape.
Yeah, that's actually spray paint, but that you didn't hear it from me there, Bryan Leonard. Always a pleasure here, my friend. Enjoy the weekend. Good luck with those plays here today. We'll see you again, of course, on Monday here. And welcome in. Happy Saturday if you're joining us. WagerTalk's last call. Don't forget, if you have any questions about the upcoming slate of games here today, Major League Baseball, Adam Trigger coming up here in just a minute. He will run down a couple of games. He'll also talk a little future bet here in college football since week 0 is upon us. And let me just say, is John Harbaugh and the Ravens getting a field goal today against the Packers? I might have to look at that one too as well. But Adam Trigger, there is nobody diving in and ready for baseball all over the country. We're talking wiffle ball, stickball. If there is a game going on around the world, Adam Trigger no doubt has a handicap on it. But Trig, before we get to baseball, I see the jacket. I knew this was coming. At some point, we got to talk Syracuse football. So why don't we start it right off there for week 0 here as we're getting ready for kickoff at the top of the hour in Dublin. But talk to me about Syracuse football this season. What are we looking at?
Yeah, Joe, so I'll start off by saying I'm not a Syracuse fan per se. I just live here. Obviously, I like them to be good because I live 30 minutes from Syracuse, but I went to Siena. People always say that, oh, he's a Syracuse fan. I'm really not. I just live here now, and they're like kind of my local team. But I kind of brought this up a couple weeks ago. Now I'm ready to come on and say that over 7, or if you can find the juiced up over 6.5 on Syracuse is a great bet this season. And the reason for that has less to do with the team, in my opinion, and more to do with the schedule just being very, very favorable. So really, really quick, I'll give you my 30-second preview of Syracuse. Fan base, extremely optimistic. Fran Brown, he absolutely talks the talk. We'll figure out if he can back it up. The offense is going to be better. McCord will improve them, and getting Aranda Gadsden to come back is massive. So offense should take a step forward. Defense, I'm not so sure. That's really all all anyone knows about Syracuse at this point. But the reason I think they're going to get to at least 7 wins, I'm just going to go through the schedule with you right now, and you will see how hard it would be to not win 7 games, and probably 8 or 9 the way the schedule sets up. So opener at home. They don't leave Central New York until October. So there's that. First 4 games home. Opener, Ohio. Ohio lost everyone. They're a 17-point favorite. They'll probably cover, but it should be an easy win. The first real test for them will be week 2. They play Georgia Tech, who plays today. Now, Georgia Tech, that's tough ask for them, right? They have to go to Ireland to play Florida State. They then come home, no bye week next week. They play Georgia State, who's like in Atlanta. Like Georgia State's gonna care about that game because that's a local, they're going to be a 20.5 point underdog, Georgia State, but you can bet that they're going to want to get up for Big Brother because they're both Atlanta area schools. So then Georgia Tech has to go from Ireland home to play a game. They'll be playing their 3rd game in 3 weeks in a different locale when they come to Syracuse on September 7th. So that's a tough spot for Georgia Tech. I think Syracuse will be favored there. If not, they'll be close to pick. They'll probably win that game. Then Syracuse gets a week off without having to travel. Just here you go, week off at home. Get rest up for Stanford, who comes in on a Friday night. Stanford's got to fly all the way across the country. Even if Stanford improves, Joe, they were 3-9 last year. How much are they going to improve, right? Are they going to be favored on the road on a Friday night in Syracuse, New York? No, they're probably not. Holy Cross FCS school, that's a layup. So right now, it's a good chance you're 4-0. And the fifth game, now everyone loves UNLV this year. I see everyone is so high on UNLV. I like UNLV as well. But that's a Friday night standalone game at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. Cuse is still probably a favorite right there. So I'm not saying they're going to start 5-0, but I think 4-1 is almost likely for this team. Real possibility. And then, NC State is actually probably their hardest game on the schedule from a spread standpoint. I think they're only going to be like a 7.5 point underdog on the road in that game. And even if they lose that one, they go into another bye week. So you're talking like probably, let's just for argument's sake, say they're 4-2 going into the week 8 bye. They come out of it. Pittsburgh, very average team. I don't know that they improve much. Like, what do you? I'd say maybe 4-8. Joe, I know you're an ACC guy. You've probably got Pittsburgh 4-8, 5-7. Like, I'm not saying winning on the road is ever easy, but probably favored in that game again. And then the other team that everyone loves this year is Virginia Tech. Everyone is high on Virginia Tech. I don't disagree with that either. I think Virginia Tech's going to have a great season. The problem is they've got to come up to Syracuse, and they embarrassed Syracuse and Blacksburg last year. Embarrassed Syracuse. It was a Thursday night national TV game. I think Syracuse had 10 yards the whole game. The final was like 30-0. So biggest home game of the year for Syracuse. Big revenge spot for them. And then you go into the last 4 games, Joe. BC, Cal, and UConn are all the same team. They're all average teams. Yeah. They could end up right around 6-6. They all probably improved from last year, but none of those games is a guaranteed win. None of those games is a guaranteed loss. And then, Joe, Syracuse finishes up here at the JMA Wireless Dome on November 30th, Thanksgiving weekend, with your Miami Hurricanes. And you know that unless that game means Miami's going to win something, Miami's going to go to the college football playoff, Miami could win the ACC, they are not going to give a shit about that game. If Miami is in a game, if that game doesn't mean the world to Miami, they will not care about the last game of the season, having to travel from South Florida up to miserable Central New York. They just won't. So I think it'll be wrapped up before the Miami game, but don't count them out, if it comes down to that game. And again, Syracuse is probably only like a sizable underdog against NC State and Miami, and neither of those are games that Syracuse can't win. So 7 wins is likely. I have this team at 8-4. I wouldn't even be surprised to see a 9-3 if they get off to the hot start. Off to the hot start that I think they're going to. If you can find the juice 6.5, which is probably like -140, -150, that's a great bet. But over 7 and around even money, I'll be shocked if they don't get 7 wins.
Oh, a lot of hype there with the new. I mean, it's kind of a new era in Syracuse.
The hype, Joe, the hype
is
out
there,
of control. It is.
It's got to be.
The fan base is as fired up for this team as I can remember. I mean, I didn't grow up in the Syracuse area, but I grew up in Albany, which is still right. That's still the college football team that you kind of support if you're in Albany is Syracuse. And I can't remember the fan base being this excited about the team in 20 years. It's really that's what I'm saying. Fran Brown can talk the talk. Yep. He's got everyone fired up. He brought in a bunch of good players. We'll see if they can play, but you got to like their chances. Joe, ranked teams in the ACC, FSU, SMU, FSU, Louisville, Clemson, NC State. The only one Syracuse has to play is NC State. Got to like
that's it. Yeah. No, I'm looking at this schedule. It's absurd. No Clemson. They would have always played Clemson and Florida State in the years past. Always would have had them on a schedule. So that was always going to be 2 losses. But look at this non-conference schedule. It's kind of laughable here. If they can't rack up 8 wins here, Trig, what are we doing?
Right. Four home games, a week off in between. Georgia Tech coming in off the worst travel imaginable, literally flying around the world. And then Stanford having to go all the way across country to play a Friday night game. Well, you literally can't ask for a more favorable 4-game stretch to start the season.
Yep. I love it. And they got a new DC there coming out of College Station, one of the best recruiters in the country, too. I think Syracuse
they're going to be an over
spot.
They're going to be an over team because I think the defense could be a little bit shaky. I think they're going to score some points with LaQuint Allen, Gadsden, so on and so forth. McCord is an upgrade at the position. I wouldn't be surprised if they're in a couple shootouts because I don't think their defense is quite up to speed yet. That's just, kind of where I see them from an over-under standpoint.
Give it time. It'll be there. All right, we've got college football. Now let's talk Major League Baseball with you here, Trig. We heard Bryan Leonard give the nod and a wink to maybe the White Sox here. So
I was
we got to
backstage.
talk.
I'll second that. I agree with his breakdown. I said that. I've said this a few times. Kai Busch, he's got a lot of upside, big time prospect for them. Like, I wouldn't be betting against him. Like, he's got too much potential for you to want to lay that number against him, because like Busch's stuff is good. Like, he could come out and fire 6 really good innings and match Scooble, and all of a sudden, you have to like your chances with White Sox. Probably the +1.5 at plus money, but didn't make my card. I thought about it though, as you know.
Yeah, I figured it was there for you, but one that you're seriously considering, and of course you are, and you probably should, is the A's taking on the Brewers here. Didn't work out great for the A's last night, but what do you think the chances of a possible bounce back and upset here today are?
Yeah, if you've listened to my shows this week, like I'm probably sound like a broken record because I've been talking about the A's all week, but I'm going to continue to drive this point home because I think it's going to make you a lot of money down the stretch of Major League Baseball. This A's team is very, very good right now. They have a lot of young players, some of which have already sort of trickled into the big league club, into the lineup. They're going to call up. They've got about 4 or 5 players that in Las Vegas right now that are all going to likely start to get playing time in the coming weeks that are very good. And the biggest tell here, Joe, the books continue to price them very competitively, which is telling. It's not great if you're trying to bet on them because, like, again, you've got the Brewers here who are a playoff team, and you can't even get the +1.5 at a playable number at home when the Brewers are clear favorites. That tells me the books are pricing this accordingly. But like the last 2 nights, I still was able to get plus money on the A's. I won with them on Thursday. I lost with them yesterday, still net a profit there. And that's probably what's going to happen if you just bet this A's team on a semi-regular basis the rest of the way. Now, the downfall for the A's is starting pitching. That's where it's going to be difficult to bet the A's. That's why I haven't bet the A's yet here. I'm just not that high on Boyle. But what you can do is bet the A's live. So their bullpen right now is loaded. Mason Miller is the best reliever in the entire game of baseball on any team. There's not a better relief pitcher right now in Major League Baseball than Mason Miller. I mean, there's ones that are close, but I think you can make the argument that he's the best. Grant Holman recently called up. He's been he's probably been the best reliever at AAA all season. Now he's up. He's been great in his couple outings since being called up. They're now going with JT Ginn out of the bullpen. He's a former second rounder for the Mets. He was starting games in Las Vegas, but it looks like they're going to use him in a relief role, at least for now. So in this type of game, because I don't really fully trust Boyle, I would probably just, if I could have gotten the +1.5 at, let's say, -125, I would have put it on my client card. I would have bet it. At -150, yes, you can go +1. I'm still thinking of that, kind of giving that some thought. But I think the better way to bet this is to see how the first couple innings play out. And if it's a close game, if it's a one-run game, if it's a tie game, the A's, based off of how the game went yesterday, are likely going to use Ginn, Holman, Miller in a tie game or a game where they have the lead. So if you can kind of see the A's are in it, it's tied, they're up 1, they're down 1, when it's time for Boyle to come out, you're going to get those big arms today because they didn't pitch yesterday. And, the Brewers, like, Rhea's fine. I don't really have like I'm not dying to fade him, but also don't think he's like a guy that I, need to back at this point. The Brewers are still a good baseball team, which is why I'm just going to maybe pump the brakes with betting the A's pre-flop in this series. But I think tie game, when Boyle's about to come out, there's some really good bullpen arms that haven't been used. I would give them the advantage late in this game, and you'll probably still get the probably get the +1.5, depending on, who's batting, or you'll just get like a plus price. And I would 1000% take A's +115 if that's the live line in a tie game once the starters are out. So that's kind of how I'm looking at that game. But you will see a lot. If you are subscribed to my service, rest assured you'll probably see the A's a bunch over the next couple weeks. I think they have a chance, Joe, to have one of the best records in Major League Baseball from this point till the end of the season.
Ooh, liking the chances there. All right, I'm going to run through. I'm going to give you a couple of games here, Trig. We'll just, you can tell us pass, or if you're leaning one way or the other on them here. We'll get to as many as we can. We'll start Old Timers Day at the stadium here with the Yankees taking on the Rockies. I don't feel like laying $3 with Will Warren ever in any reality, in any way, shape, or form, but it does feel like, and I believe Blaylock is going for the Rockies, who's actually, his first couple of starts were not bad here, but it just feels like it's going to be too much Yankees here. Are you leaning total side? What would you do in this one?
Yeah, usually the guys like that recently get called up, I have a stronger opinion on. I honestly haven't seen a ton of Blaylock. I don't have a great handicap on him. I do feel like I have Will Warren pegged pretty good. And, he's someone that I thought would struggle at the big league level this year. And, he pretty much has. Although, he settled in a little bit in his last start. It was against the White Sox. This is now at home against another team in the Rockies that has just absolutely horrific road splits, Joe. Their road – I mean, this is a bad team in general, but their road splits are so bad that it's really tough to want to back the Rockies on the road. Maybe plus 2.5. Like that's about like I could see that. So one thing with the Rockies, they do have some bats. They will hit a little bit here and there, and I could see them putting up some offense against Will Warren. But man, there's other things to do today. I think I'd rather go finish mowing. I think I'm going to go finish mowing my lawn, which still has a massive strip in it that I didn't finish from yesterday because I wanted to come in and watch baseball. I'm going to go finish that instead of watch Rockies Yankees.
I love it. I will say this, though. The kid, Blaylock, he faced Arizona and San Diego in his 2 starts, 12 innings, and he limited both those lineups. So he's been pretty decent, but it feels like an over game here. Also an over game to me, Trig, is Arizona and the Red Sox. Zach Gallen back on the mound, Cutter Crawford for Boston. They went over by themselves last night, Arizona as a dog. They'll have an opportunity, I think, against Cutter Crawford to keep it. And they got no Christian Walker and no Marte, and they're still crushing the ball here. What are we doing in this one? Do you trust Zach Gallen?
No, I talked about this game a little bit yesterday on a couple of the different shows I did. I was wrong about yesterday's game. I leaned toward the Red Sox. Thankfully, didn't play it. They lost 12-2, but I do think the Sox probably bounce back at some point in this series. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow, but I got to say, like, Gallen has not inspired a ton of confidence with me lately. I played the Rays. He is. I was going to say, he's battled a couple of different injuries. It looks like they're lingering. I backed the Diamondbacks last week. I was on the wrong side. I wanted to play against the Rays. I knew Marte was going to play in that game, so I knew he was going to give it a go. This was when he kind of came back and then decided, okay, I got to go on the IL. The ankles is too bad to sort of proceed. But Gallen never had it in that game at any point. Like, from the very first batter, he refused to sort of put the ball in the zone. He was really trying to nibble, was behind in every count. And eventually the Rays made him pay. Now, the Rays are not a good offensive team, right? Like, that's like, so if you have to nibble against that putrid Rays lineup, who's not very good, unless something drastic has happened in what's now been 7 days, I don't love his chances at Fenway, where the Red Sox just mash the ball. The other problem I have with Gallen, his home road splits are also drastic. Woo! He is historically much better at home. So, that's the thing. Like, and then of course you have the Red Sox coming off of an ugly loss. I expect their bats to sort of pick it up tonight. And the one thing about Arizona, which, this is a team I've been very high on. I pointed this out the other day. If you go back to like the end of June, I think like June 23rd or something like that, they have the best record in Major League Baseball. But they're now without a top 15 position player, in my opinion. Ketel Marte, I would have him in the top 10, 15 all-around players. 900 plus OPS, guy's an absolute stud. You take him out of the lineup. Like, the way they're priced right here, they should be a bigger underdog at Fenway than plus 103 or whatever they are in this game, right? Like, And wherever it's priced, they should be a bigger underdog, in my opinion. I think you got to start to sell Arizona right now. They have a bullpen that doesn't really have established roles. There's a lot of good arms down there, but they can't really figure out who's in the 7th inning, who's in the 8th inning. You've got guys that have struggled in that 9th inning role there. Like, you go back to the Rays series, they kind of botched like 2 of those games late. So I'm kind of in sell mode on Arizona right now. I would play the Red Sox if I was going to bet this game.
Yeah, to me, I'd play their team total over. I would play a lot of overs in this game coming up here today. That would not shock me at all. Trig, what do you got rolling over here? And by the way, big shout out Ray D'Amico in the house. Saw him hanging in there. Tyler, also, I believe William Bennett in the house. Good to see you guys. Shout out to those of you joining us on Instagram. Always a pleasure to see the day drinking on a Saturday during college football season. We hope that continues for your sake there. Trig, before I get you out of here, one quick game of note, because this team they need a win desperately, and I think they get it today. What about the Guardians and the Rangers? 8-2 in lively starts. It was not good last night. They're just, after the All-Star break, it hasn't been good to the Guardians. The Twins are on their tail. But really, am I going to trust Gray? Like, no, I think the dude's running out of steam here. Is the Guardians the play at a small price?
Probably, if you were going to bet the side, I think I lean toward runs here. The reason I say that, you kind of made the point, Gray potentially running out of the gas, the Rangers running out of gas, they're kind of out of it. I don't know if you're going to get the tip-top effort from them on a game-in, game-out basis. Remember, this is a team that won the World Series last year.
Yep.
They're not going to the playoffs this year. So I think you're going to see sketchy effort from them on a day-to-day basis as we get into the, sort of the final few weeks of the regular season, play out the string time for the Rays. As far as the Guardians are concerned, though, Ben Lively's a guy that I've watched probably just as much as any other pitcher in the majors over the last 5 seasons, mostly because 3 of those seasons he was in Korea. So I watched a lot of him when he was with Samsung Lions, and he's a guy that I've only sort of looked to oppose later in the season. If you go back to prior to this year, Joe, his ERA at the MLB level coming into this year was over 5. He really struggled down the stretch last year with the Reds. Now, he got off to a great start this year. He's actually had a really impressive season overall. I think if you were to tell me that his numbers would be this in the middle of August and that he's essentially pitched the entire way for the Guardians, I wouldn't have believed you. But a lot of his underlying metrics suggest regression. He is entirely about command. The guy throws 90. He's not going to blow it by. He's not going to blow it by anyone.
Yep.
His entire success is predicated on hitting spots, soft contact, and keeping hitters off balance. And he's starting to get up there in terms of innings pitched for the season. I think he's going to get rocked at some point. I actually cashed. I played against him with the Diamondbacks and won. I played against him with the Cubs and I got kind of screwed in that game, but that's another story. But here, he kind of had a decent start last time out against the Brewers. They still lost. Here, I don't know that I want to back the Rangers, so I think I would go with over 8.5. I think the Rangers do score some runs, and it feels like both teams get to 4. And as you know, Joe, if you can both get to 4, 8.5's a winner already. So slightly into the over. Not sure I'll be involved in that game.
8-2 in Lively's home starts this year. The Guardians' second most wins at home. Pretty decent price to get the better pitcher and a rested bullpen. All the arms will be available today for the Guardians.
Let me rephrase that, Joe. I want to rephrase that. I think I like first 5 over better because you make a good point about the bullpens. I don't know that I want to go up against the Guardians bullpen. So let's go
late, right?
Strongest lean in that game, first 5 over. Isolate Gray versus Lively. I think someone's going to put up a crooked number early in that game at some point.
I love that. I agree with you there. I think runs are coming early and often. Talk to me about what you got over at the page at WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, so I just released my first college football play of the new season. listen, if you are looking for like big time college football, I'm probably not your guy. If you're looking for like the ACC, the MAC, and these other bullshit schools in the Northeast that no one else talks about or follows, I'm your guy for that. I've got a play that I love. Week 1 in a game that probably no one else is betting or very few people will talk about. And it's up on my page now. I just posted it earlier this morning. I'll probably have a couple more as the day goes on. I have not played any Major League Baseball yet for today, but I expect to. Saturday is the type of day, like the weekend days, Joe, I kind of wait for lineups sometimes. Like these are the type of days where you typically get guys getting a day off, day games, especially in the day games. Otherwise, they'll typically get a day off on Sunday. So I'm usually a little bit later to post MLB on Saturday, but I've got my eye on a couple, and I may even sneak in with an NFL preseason play, later today. So definitely have plenty up today, and it's all on my page, wt.buzz/AT.
Outstanding. Hop on board with them. Take advantage of that 10th year anniversary deal. 30% off any all access package right now over at WagerTalk.com. Trig, get the hell out of here. Can you believe it? College football is back, and it won't be long before the NFL is back. In fact, college football, bet on it. We're back this week. Make sure you guys get ready for that on Wednesday. And then, of course, the NFL edition will begin as soon as the season starts, and that'll be here before we know it. So make sure you hit that thumbs up for us, guys. Hit that like button. It is always a pleasure to see all you lunatics in the chat room once again. Titan CT, Tyler, where's Eric D when you need him? Andrew is in the house. Ray D'Amico, let's go. Russell Deck in the house. Brayman's in there. William Bennett, all you guys. Also, shout out to Instagram too, liking the flat 10.5. Not a fan of the spread. We got a lot of people looking at Florida State that I am seeing, by the way. That game is coming up in just a few, guys. I'll tell you this. The total is crashing. So there's a lot of wind apparently going to be at this stadium here today. First half total also seems to be a decent play at 27.5, maybe 27 now. There is an awful lot of wind they're calling for at this game, getting ready to kick off here at the top of the hour. So do with that as you may. As the total comes crashing down, Florida State should have no excuses to win this game going away, but we all know how that works out. No doubt Florida State is the public side here today, but the public is not always wrong. So we'll see exactly how that goes. In the meantime, we appreciate you guys. Make sure you make plans. Come back. Hit that little bell in the upper right-hand corner. Get notified every Saturday as we are back here. Last call will be here each and every weekend, kicking off the college football slate for you. So on behalf of Dan and Brian and Adam and Sean, we appreciate the time, guys. Cash those damn tickets today. We'll see you again soon here on Wager Talk TV. Good luck.